and friends. Actually, when Rakhi proposed that I should be coming here, we had a long discussion, and I wanted to learn rather than say anything or enlighten you on anything, because I'm very sure all of you have thought over this issue, wherein some of you were involved actually in some form or the other, and therefore maybe my knowledge would be peripheral to all what you have done. Nevertheless, SAARC as a process, as I was mentioning to her, is even now confined to the official rooms and official halls. What we expected over the last decade or so, that from the halls it comes to the people's level. If it were to happen like that, perhaps we would have seen a different response from SAARC than what we actually saw during this very big disaster which happened in one of the most important countries in SAARC. It is not that the leadership did not think, deliberate about disasters, both natural as well as man-made. Could be either way. In the natural, the environment was the focus of concern right from the beginning of SAARC. In 1985, in the first few declarations, you find that concerns about environment and the possible bad effects of changes in the environment, of course, naturally, man-made environment, man-made factors, and what SAARC as an organization could do for mitigating these maleffects. The Technical Committee on Environment was one of the few technical committees which had begun right in the 80s. Subsequently, because of, as Rakhi mentioned, after the tsunami, disaster management came into focus, and it was in every declaration subsequent to that, the leaders said that we should, as a region, should be doing something. Of course, there's history to it. Then we have this National Disaster Management Center opening in New Delhi. Then experts being nominated onto this center. Then capacity building, because capacities in the SAARC region, in all spheres of activity, in all governmental activity, are very, very limited. The manpower is absolutely thin, and therefore the required capacities and never got a chance to sort of first build and then consolidate. In the disaster management, it was even like less than in other activities. Disasters naturally take the last because nobody thinks that he's going to die someday. At least I don't think. So, and therefore, the contingencies. Because of that, the capacity building in the SAARC context was very limited. But it cannot be said that it was not there. Subsequent to that, when we felt that the capacities, individual capacities which are developed in the being developed in the individual countries may not be sufficient. Therefore, the SAARC agreement on rapid response to natural disaster. This agreement was conceived and then with a lot of discussion, with a lot of efforts, was signed in 2011 during the Mali summit. We expected that because disasters come just from nowhere, so this has to be ratified and made operational. So we made in every meeting subsequent to that signing, we called upon all the governments to ratify this agreement so that it goes into implementation. So far, all countries, there were 3 countries which had not, 3 countries had not signed, but then 2 somehow signed it recently in 2014, but Afghanistan has not yet signed. So what happened is, this agreement could not be invoked because it's not operational, because you have to sign, you have to ratify, and it has to come to the depository in the SAARC secretariat, and in the subsequent month after the last instrument has been deposited, that it comes into operation. Despite this not being operational, what we did was how ASEAN manages its disasters and what are the mechanisms that they have. So what we did was, all the SAARC countries, with 3 experts from each country, were sent to Jakarta. It happened only in January this year. January or February this year. And how they do that, and we should be also prepared, and they had a long 5 days discussions and meetings, and they came up with some agreement that when this is ratified, we will have the operational agreement, how to do, which specifies the nitty-gritty of how things will move and what are the things which we have to do. That had been agreed upon in Jakarta, all the SAARC meetings. But this thing happened, no ratification. Therefore, SAARC per se was absent during this disaster. We did not see any activity coming from the SAARC. But as you all know, SAARC is an organization, member-driven organization. So even if individually, even as an organization of SAARC, because it's a very small secretariat, Secretary General assisted by 8 directors, and they have 1 or 2 staff each, which makes it so very, and the responsibilities they have responsibilities from poverty alleviation to health to science and technology and biotech, anything and everything in the world. So they don't have the capacity. The SAARC organization, secretariat or so. But anything happening in SAARC is all member driven. So whatever relief effort we saw during the earthquake and the rescue and relief, almost all, even like Sri Lankans, were so far. Of course, India, then Pakistan also pitched in Bangladesh. Bangladesh, I suppose, I think they said that they was the first aircraft to land in Kathmandu, but India, of course. So all the member countries pitched in. This is Bhutan also. So this is the contribution of the SAARC countries, but SAARC as an organization, no. I had the occasion when we were able to establish communication links with the Secretary General. He said, even if this agreement has not been ratified, it has been signed by all the countries, and therefore within it there are provisions. Why don't you, because you have been so absent, totally absent from the efforts, why don't we have at least some team from the SAARC Disaster Management Center, and if they are not able to provide any relief, at least they can study, so that something happens next time over, they have this hands-on experience. Secretary General very reluctantly, because he said he doesn't have the concurrence of all the member states, we said, doesn't matter, this will be post facto concurrence and approval should be taken, and he should allow. He allowed SAARC disaster management center team was in fact there, very unobtrusive, very not to be seen, but in fact I remember 4-member team was there, and they were not doing any relief, but at least they were documenting it, which would be helpful in then perhaps when we have this program chalked out, or the agreement chalked out, what could be done and how it could be done from the experience gained therein. That is as it is. But friends, as I was mentioning to Rakhi earlier, SAARC is still confined to the official rooms and halls. What we have to do is to bring at the people's level, that the people contribute, that the agreements signed. It is the people who should be like questioning this agreement is there and this isn't what. It has to question all its governments. When these agreements are there, what are you doing? These are the things which are there to be implemented. Why? Why it is not? There are 26 or 27 agreements and conventions in SAARC. I don't know if in any of these people have actually invoked something. There's an agreement like, for example, trafficking of women and children. I don't remember anybody raising any such thing. The agreement on, suppose say, trade. It was signed in 2006. What has happened? The people have to, until and unless the people actually raise their voice and raise their participation in the implementation of the agreement, I suppose it would be a long time to see the fulfillment of the promises made either in the SAARC charter, in the SAARC process, or in the agreements. These are my very preliminary comments. In case you have questions, I'll be available. Thank you.